What is the meaning of life? Why are we here? The biggest questions of all. The questions that have dogged the greatest minds for centuries. It makes me look up to the heavens in awe at our vast, magnificent universe and wonder at the possibilities of what life is all about. Join me on a journey to understand more about who we are, why we're here, and to discover more happiness, meaning, and purpose.
Hello and welcome to today's video. We're nearing the end of our beautiful experiment, but in some ways, really this is just the beginning. Although this is a 30-day experiment, if you've noticed any shifts in your awareness, I would hope that you'd continue with the tools of the blue experiment.
Because in my experience, the green shoots of self-knowledge eventually build into a beautiful tree that can yield a delicious fruit. That fruit is glimpsing, experiencing, and eventually fully blossoming in our true nature, which is blue. Bliss, love, unity, and eternal existence. And what is literally the colour blue around us to remind us of our infinite nature? The vast sky and the vast blue ocean.
Today, I'd like to share what I personally have found to be some of the highest and most profound spiritual knowledge on my own journey. And I find this knowledge so uplifting and sublime in its nature. Now, in some ways, throughout the film, we've been building up to this moment. This knowledge alone can accelerate us along the path of realizing who we really are. And I'm excited to share it with you today.
To grasp these concepts, they say that it helps to have a clear, calm intellect and an open heart, warmed by the glow of meditation. If our minds are restless and noisy, rushing out into the world, desperately seeking pleasure, then the mind can't grasp these very subtle concepts. It's like putting a thread through the eye of a needle. It requires focus and being surrendered to the present moment. In day 28 and 29, we'll look at these two core concepts on the path of discernment and centeredness.
And we'll look at how aspects of the blue experiment can help us develop these qualities within us and can help us to reduce our conditionings. Now, these qualities aren't just powerful on our spiritual journey, they're the same qualities that can help us in all aspects of our lives, including being successful in our own fields. Discernment is having a clear perspective on ourselves and on life. Sometimes it's also referred to as discrimination. And developing discernment is both the path and the ultimate goal. Now, there are many aspects of discernment, and we'll discuss three main ones today.
Discernment means waking up and realizing that what we see around us in time and 3D space is not the ultimate reality. It's seeing life in a new, expanded way. A useful analogy is observing a character in a cartoon. Imagine explaining to the cartoon character that their reality is not the ultimate reality, that they're stuck in 2 dimensions, and there is a 3-dimensional reality beyond what they experience. They probably wouldn't believe you unless they conducted their own experiment. In the same way, there may be a reality beyond what we experience in 3D space and time. In fact, according to various scientific theories, especially superstring theory, there could be many layers of reality and many dimensions. Through the 3S journey back to blue, we're able to develop that discernment, that awareness, that what we see around us is not the ultimate reality. What are we discerning or choosing between? Well, we're gaining clarity and waking up to the difference between the following: the permanent versus the impermanent, the changeless versus the changing, the real versus the unreal. Now, these can be quite abstract concepts, so let's explore each of these aspects of discernment in more detail so that we can make them more meaningful and practical.
We asked this question right at the beginning, didn't we? What do we all really want as human beings? Well, we want to feel loved, don't we? We want to feel happy. And do we want to be happy only occasionally? No, I'm sure we'd like that longer lasting happiness that we call contentment. We want that deeper, unconditional happiness.
But the mind will ask, so how do I get this happiness now? And then the mind, driven by desires, will employ all kinds of strategies. The mind will convince us that more pleasure and happiness will definitely come. A bar of chocolate, a promotion, a new car, a compliment from someone. And of course, we get a bit of pleasure here or there, a temporary bit of fleeting happiness, but it doesn't last.
Why doesn't the happiness last? Well, as an example, I love chocolate lava cake. You know, the one with a soft centre, the soft liquid centre that oozes out, normally with a big dollop of ice cream. There is an anticipation of happiness and pleasure that I'm going to get. That is good. Now, whilst I'm eating it, I'm thinking of other things. My mind isn't even here. And once I've finished it, I feel heavy and a bit sick because it's so sweet. And I certainly couldn't have another one. If I had another one, there'd be no further pleasure to be had. In the same way, all our senses have a limited capacity to give us happiness, to give us enjoyment. So anything external will only give us little fleeting glimpses of happiness. The happiness also doesn't last because our desires are constantly changing. And also, they keep increasing. So we're trying to get that contentment, that stillness, by satisfying our desires that will never end. And therefore, we keep postponing our happiness into the future, thinking that it will eventually come.
It's like a thirsty man walking in a desert for days. He suddenly sees a beautiful fountain in the distance. And now he walks in anticipation of quenching his thirst. However, it's a mirage in the desert. It seems real, but it's unreal. The nearer he thinks he's getting to that mirage of happiness, the further away it seems to get. When we apply this as a spiritual metaphor, we realise that the desert is also a mirage, because our true nature is bliss and love. That desert represents scarcity thinking. If he just stopped, looked around and went deep inside himself, he would realise that there is so much around him already. While he was looking around to quench his thirst, if he noticed the wonder of it all, he could see that he's actually already in a lush green oasis.
When we build our muscle of discernment, we learn to see the incredible subtleties of the abundance that's already waiting for us.
That deeper contentment that we seek, that fountain of water, is only found in the power of the present moment. When we stop feverishly looking around for it on the outside and are aware and grateful for what we already have, then we can discover that as well.
So here, we can use discernment to recognise that our minds might be creating a mirage. It's constantly searching for permanent happiness in impermanent things. Now, there's nothing wrong with having these things or desiring these things. We can fully enjoy the fruits of the world and its pleasures. But contentment comes when we can have a level of discernment, meaning non-attachment, recognising that what we truly seek is within us. This discernment can also be used to elevate our desires to something higher. For instance, do we want to spend every spare moment watching TV? Or instead, do we want to spend more loving time with our families or our neighbours, or go and meditate? Do we want to do things only for our mind and body, or for communion with our soul? One of the most important questions on the path is, who am I? Am I my body? Am I my mind? Am I my thoughts and emotions? Am I my desires and beliefs? Now, most people never ask these questions. We just sleepwalk through life.
You may remember that in day 4, I asked you to close your eyes and become aware of the thoughts as a witness. And I asked you whether you can be your mind and observe your mind at the same time. You can't do both at the same time. And therefore, who is observing your mind? Who is observing your intellect? I concluded with a suggestion that we must be something beyond our mind and intellect. We must exist as something beyond our changing thoughts and emotions, because we can witness them.
As our awareness becomes more subtle throughout the blue experiment, we begin to start identifying less with our changing thoughts and emotions, and instead identifying more with our witnessing awareness, seeing things as happenings unfolding around us. We identify more with the sunlight, which is the one pure, blissful, loving consciousness. This is identifying more with the changeless rather than the constantly changing mind.
It's like the foundations of a house. The house on top may have people coming and going. The house may change ownership. Someone may add an extension, knock down a wall. The house may even burn to the ground. The house may be repainted. This is the changing. But the foundations of the house, the substratum, remains changeless.
Have you ever felt that even though you've grown up from a child to a teenager to an adult, that there's a subtle part of us that's never actually changed? This is the foundations of the house. There's a subtle, wise part of us that has observed our growth all the way through. This is the eternal witness that has been with us right from the start.
If we identify with the witness, this doesn't mean we reject the mind. With self-love and compassion, we embrace our changing minds to go beyond our minds and become the blissful, loving witness within. Our witness, our pure consciousness, is the part of us that is in the world but not of it.
Discernment means to recognize and identify more with the changeless, and to identify less with our changing thoughts and emotions. To be more in the observer state or the witness state. Now, being in this state means we're more likely to glimpse our true nature and gradually become more established in our true nature. The next step of discernment is realizing that not only are we the individual witness, we are the total witness. The pure witness in you, the pure witness in me, the pure witness in everybody is the same thing. We are the same as the total consciousness, which is all that exists.
Take the example of electricity. Now, electricity can power a fan, a TV, a computer. But it's all the same electricity powering everything. In the same way, there is one witness, one consciousness, powering all these different equipments of the mind, body, and intellect, which are individual to each person. So we all have different bodies and minds, but the core essence of all of us is the same. Therefore, we can expand our identity to embrace all beings. We really are all one. One soul, one existence. In our videos on manifestation, we suggested that the world of people and situations may be a projection of our own conditionings. In the projector analogy, the light of the bulb is the one pure consciousness, the eternal witness, and the film reel represents our conditionings. When the light projects through the film reel, it manifests people and situations into our lives. Now, imagine billions of individual projectors representing everyone on this planet, all coming together to project this collective reality around us. But ultimately, there's only one bulb, one light, one witnessing awareness, and one consciousness.
The final step of discernment is realizing that there is no difference between the witness and that which is witnessed. I can see a house, I can see a car, but we are all made up of the same stuff, consciousness. This is called non-duality.
We are like the space itself. Everything is happening in space. Everything is filled with space. Even in an atom, 99.99% of an atom is empty space. It's like a theatre stage. Actors come and go. The scenery changes, but the space on the stage remains the same. When we identify with the actor, we may suffer. But in fact, we're the space, the whole stage, the consciousness within which the scene is taking place. We are the subject, the object, and the space in between.
We are existence itself. We are the totality, we're everything. We are the foundations of all the houses, as well as all the houses themselves. We are both the witness and that which is witnessed. There is no duality. There is only oneness.
In summary, there are 3 steps to discernment, using the question, who am I? Firstly, I am not my mind's thoughts and emotions. I am the witness of them. Secondly, not only am I the individual witness or consciousness, I am the total witnessing awareness in everyone. And the third stage of awareness is not only am I the total witness, I am also that which is witnessed. I am everything.
How can we discern what's real? Let's look around. Is the chair that you're sitting on right now real? Is the room that you're in right now real? All that we can be sure of is that we are aware or conscious and that we're having an experience. But is that which we are experiencing, the stuff around us, is that real? Is it solid?
In day 2, we learnt that science has not found any solid matter in the universe. And we suggested that objects may only come into existence because we are conscious beings and are there to observe them. If we're not conscious, then nothing may exist without a conscious observer. And in day 3, we suggested that the raw building blocks of everything in the universe could be our own consciousness. As before, in the projector analogy, the light of the bulb is the one pure consciousness, and the film represents our conditionings. When the light projects through the film, it manifests people and situations into our lives.
Could it be that the world is being played out within our own consciousness, just like in a dream? In a dream, which is made up of our own consciousness, the dream ends when we wake up. But once we're awake, could this other layer of reality, could this also be a form of a dream? Now, this world that we live in may also just be made up of another layer of consciousness.
When we wake up from a dream, were the friends in the dream real? Was the street that we were standing on in the dream, was that real? They all existed within us. They were made up in our own minds. So rather than our minds being in the world may simply be in our own minds. The world is just made up in our own consciousness. Could it be that we bring the world into existence through our own consciousness? But hang on, the world feels so real. Therefore, how do we discern what is real and unreal? How can we reconcile these 2 points of view? One way is by treating life like a kind of game.
Life can bring us pain. It can also bring us great sorrow. It certainly may not feel like a game in the traditional sense. But at the highest level, maybe life is like a game.
Now, why do we play a computer game or a board game or a sport? Well, we play for the fun of it, for the challenge, or to get better at it, to discover our talents and gifts, or to feel greater connection to our friends, or maybe to better know ourselves. And there is no greater challenge than this game that we call life. If someone is not playing the game well, or is getting hurt, we help them out. We still take responsibility for everything happening in the game. Now, interestingly, most computer games give us more than one shot at getting to the end.
We can enjoy the challenge of the game despite the ups and downs it may bring. We can play the game fully in order to go beyond the game. And with discernment, we can realize that we're in it, but not of it.
So even though a game is not real, it doesn't matter. We play it anyway for the sheer joy of it. But have we taken this game called life so seriously that we've become attached, that we've forgotten to have fun? In order to fully enjoy the game, rather than being unhappy, we need to know the rules of the game. We could hypothesize 3 main rules. Firstly, we've forgotten who we are, and the purpose of the game is to remember that we are made up of love. The second rule could be, people and situations are a projection of our own conditionings to help us grow. And finally, all that exists is the one blissful, loving, unified, eternal consciousness within which the game is being played. When we remind ourselves of the rules, we don't take the ups and downs of life so seriously. It's easier to become the loving, compassionate witness, because we see it all as part of life's rich tapestry. There is a system here which is working perfectly, despite how it may seem on the surface.
When I think of life in this way, I can feel my whole consciousness expand. there is a wonderment in my mind, an inner wow.
We can really let go and realise that at some level, at the highest level, nothing matters. What are we holding on to? Desires, attachments, worries. We can surrender them and let them go. And wake up and see we're made up of bliss and love. And we can be at peace and be complete in this moment right now. Just like being the cinema goer, watching the film with delight, rather than being the anxious character in the film. There is no attachment to what happens in the film.
It can develop serenity within us. It can develop resilience, knowing that we can almost welcome the ups and downs of life as parts of our spiritual evolution. This helps dissolve our conditionings and bring us closer to the bliss and the love that we truly are.
Discernment is realising that in the physical realm, life is just matter playing with matter. And in the overlapping spiritual realm, it's just bits of consciousness playing with other bits of consciousness.
Discernment is the ability to see life from this higher perspective. And discernment helps cleanse our bowl of its conditionings. It helps purify the mind. Because we're no longer so affected by the restlessness of our conditionings. Because we can see life from this higher perspective.
How do we practically develop discernment within us? Well, the Blue experiment, involving the 3S journey back to blue, contains many tools to help us develop discernment. Discernment is a concept that we keep developing in our own unique way. It's an expansion of consciousness, seeing the bigger picture, seeing life from a higher perspective. All of these practices eventually lead to a centered mind and a more contemplative mind. We can't force this process or get attached to it. It will happen in its own time. All we can do is be sincere in our practices of service, self-knowledge, and spiritual practices. As we journey towards you for unity, we begin to spend more time contemplating our relationship with the one blue consciousness. Are we really separate? Or are we at one with everyone and everything around us? It may begin as an idea, but this continual contemplation with devotion moves us towards the final step, the ultimate state of continual meditation, where we experience and become who we really are whilst in the body, where we abide continually in our state of oneness, reveling in bliss, love, unity, and our eternal existence. Discernment is realizing that what we see around us in time and space is not the ultimate reality. Discernment is waking up. It's being aware of the difference between what is temporary and permanent, what is changing and unchanging, and what is real and unreal. We can choose to focus on the temporary pleasures of the world or instead identify with the permanent bliss and love within us. We can choose to focus on our changing thoughts and emotions, or identify with the changeless witness within us. We can do this by labeling our thoughts so that we can see them for what they are. The ultimate discernment is realizing that the witnessing consciousness in us is the same witnessing consciousness in other people. There is only oneness. From the highest perspective, we could see life as a kind of game with 3 laws. Firstly, we've forgotten who we are, and the purpose of the game is to remember that we are love. Secondly, people and situations are a projection of our own conditionings to help us grow. And the third law could be, all that exists is the one blissful, loving, unified, eternal consciousness within which the game is being played. We can develop discernment through self-knowledge, reading, reflecting, and meditating. And of course, this is an experiment, so certainly don't take my word for it. We can play with these concepts of discernment and see whether they feel right to us.